Anyways.
Send it.
Well, so what's weird is that we don't have to do intros anymore because we have one.
Right.
Today's episode is going to be weird. It's going to be interesting. Lifestyle changes. I am moving from California. Finally, thank God. And if you guys don't believe in him, thank Satan. And if you guys don't believe in either, then I can't help
California. That's what I heard.
Yeah, fuck California. So I have now had a decent job offer, and we'll leave that details for other time. But I'm moving east. So great things are happening. Problem. My commute is going to be long. It is going to be about 50 miles, give or take an hour drive, maybe less with depending traffic. That's not the problem. The problem is that the two vehicles I have average 17 miles to the gallon each. I have the two worst vehicles you could possibly think of for commuting. I have a lower pickup truck with a V8 and 4 speeds, and I have an RX-8. And if you either know anything about those type of vehicles or you know me, 17 miles to the gallon is probably on the more... what would we say, Stephen? Is on the more ambitious side of things.
Yeah, I mean, Craig's not familiar with it, but for those of you in the near Atlanta area familiar with the Atlanta Motor Speedway, otherwise known as 285, nobody gets rated gas mileage because we all go fast everywhere.
Right. And I refuse to put taller gears in either of my cars for the sake of mileage. So there becomes the big deciding question at this point now. Does a single bachelor need 3 vehicles? Absolutely not. Am I going to get one? Probably. So based off of a late night request from one of our other listeners, I got thinking about, hey, for about $20,000, what is a great commuter car that gives me minimal road noise and decent to good luxuries and is bulletproof reliable? And I asked Steven this, and what did Steven say?
Okay, so a couple of things to preface here. In my opinion about this discussion, commuters are not the one-purpose, all-purpose daily driver cars, which that's a totally different thing. That works for some people. It doesn't work for people like me and Craig. One car to do everything just isn't great. And I don't feel like that works for most of us gearheads out there.
Right.
We all tried it when we were younger. It's not awesome. So with that said, we're going to assume that a commuter is a vehicle with the primary purpose of literally for conveying you to and from work in comfort and quietness while getting decent gas mileage.
Mm-hmm.
It's the purpose of a commuter.
And reliability.
Right? And reliable, right? And preferably also something cheap to maintain.
Yeah.
It'd be a nice second.
And this is also for those of us who are kind of like in spoiled climates like myself. I'm going to say it's going to be for weather reliable as well. That being said, I myself was born and raised. Yeah. I was born and raised in a northern state with a lot of snow, and the vehicle that I grew up and went to school in for 4 seasons was an open differential Crown Victoria. So the drive line matters less, and I'm actually one of those advocates who says you don't need all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive to get around. Sorry,
Concur
guys.
solidly.
Front-wheel drive Civic can do 80% of everything else.
The reader request, or listener request, or viewer request, whatever this thing is. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not good at technology, I promise. Was for a... I'm old. I just learned how to use Instagram last week, all right? That's not a joke, by the way. That's a real thing. But the reader request was for a $20,000 commuter. And let me just go ahead and point this out right now. That's fucking stupid. $20,000 commuter doesn't need to be a thing, shouldn't be a thing, and I'm never going to endorse that to anyone. Okay. There are many, many, many choices out there for $5,000 to $10,000 that, in my personal opinion, professionally, do everything that a $20,000 commuter would do. So we'll say $20,000 commuter is, I'm going to assume what people are thinking in that line is going to be something like a Corolla or maybe a Civic, something in that group.
And these are the new car prices, right? So I brought that up, right? Like anything above $20,000 flat line for new car wise, I can go out and buy myself a Corolla hatchback in blue, right? This would be that's kind of like the baseline of where I would say I want a good car that's going to last me a while, brand new. $20,000. I think they're at 22 or 23, maybe with dealer
markup. It's also the same price as like a Civic Sport or something like that. Yeah,
and yeah. So like that's the markup. So me and Steven being poor boys who are conscientious about our life decisions and do not want to have $50,000 or $40,000 car loans. We're looking at the used car market. And so, what do you get for a commuter that would suit all the little tick box that we have without also being a complete shit box? And granted, we do like shit boxes here at the Broken Axle. We do. I love my Toyota Yaris. However, the shit boxes are one of those where you want to get into and commute maybe 7 miles to work. So if I was inner city and going to college, sure. Or like in my current living situation, I'm in National City. I have to go to Coronado, 7 miles, literally 10 minutes on the road. I can deal with wind noise, shit box, small car.
Yeah, even
However,
15, 20-minute commute's not bad.
yeah.
It's something with,
However,
it's a little rattly, a little bouncy, whatever. It's not that big a deal. You're only in it for 15 minutes. When you start doing
yep.
hour commutes, seats matter. When you're Craig size, especially, you have to fit comfortably in the car. Right? If you got to get a weird driving position because you don't fit comfortably in the car, that is not going to be awesome after doing it an hour a day for days on end. Like, it's just not going to be awesome.
Yep.
As I think most of our listeners know, I own a 04 Cobra, the last of the new Edge Mustangs, the Terminator goodness. I do drive it to work occasionally. There is no way in hell I would ever consider commuting in it, not just for the gas mileage, but the seats kind of suck. The driving position kind of sucks. It just doesn't work.
And what about foul weather, Steven? You've got yourself Hurricane Sandy who's coming back in, and the North Georgia's getting bombarded with a bunch of wind and rain.
That's a hard sell. Driving the Terminator and Mustang in rain, but that has more to do with my fear of dying.
I mean, trucks got drag radials, so yeah, I'm right there with you.
YOLO. But so that said,
do it once.
That said, so some things that we came up with after a discussion of this, and a couple of these we'll talk about have a few other variants of the same family that we're not really going to cover in detail because they're all basically the same, and there's no point in covering all of them in detail. One of them, my dad actually just bought one of these, is the Ford Panther platform. And I know we've suggested it as the solution to all of the world's problems, because it is.
But it is, though. It is. The Ford Panther chassis is a common staple here at the dollar per amount of vehicle you get at the Broken Axle.
It really is, man. You can't beat it.
I'll let Steven continue, but it is. It is the answer. If it's not Miata and it's not Corvette, it's a Panther chassis.
So they're really hard to beat on size valuation, right? They're one of the only things in this price range that can fit 5 grown American adults comfortably. Have a trunk for 5 grown American adults worth of luggage. They've got the Ford 4.6 liter 2-valve modular motor. As long as you're talking about a late model, it's the PI motor, and they're fantastically reliable. Normally run for 250,000, 300,000 miles without issue. 4R70W.
Power to kill themselves.
Yep, 4R70W, same thing. Basic 4-speed, old school slush box automatic, but works good for a long time. Full frame construction, beefy. I mean, there's a reason they were used as cop cars, police cars, and fleet cars for forever. Mm-hmm. Dead nut simple to work on. Parts availability is awesome and cheap.
They share components with the Ford Mustang, same bolt pattern too, with the wheels and brakes.
True story.
They share the Ford's 8.8, which is literally the most common rear end out there. Literally, like not even joking. Like the Ford 8.8 is probably
under more race cars and street cars than any other single axle on the planet. I'd be willing to go on that.
Right. Yeah. Like I legitimately don't even think that the 10 bolt from GM maybe has been made longer, as many things. Yes, it's under many things. The 8.8 is literally the most numerous rear axle out there.
So all that said, downsides to the Panther. And when we say Panther, let's go ahead and elaborate that a little bit. All right, so we're talking about Lincoln Town Cars, Mercury Grand Marquis, Ford Crown Victorias, and the Mercury Marauder, which we're not going to cover in detail, much to Craig's great dismay.
Guys, I want a Marauder. I don't. The redesigned 08 newer Crown Vics are better suspension wise. I understand this, and they're newer. I still want a Marauder. All right, keep going.
That said, as Craig alluded to, if you were shopping for one, my suggestion would be that which one doesn't actually matter. It's just a trim choice. You want a little more basic and cloth and simpler, or do you want the Barca loungers with power everything? but mechanically they're all basically identical. Power
Yeah.
everything. That's my vote. Town car, power trunk, baby. I want to see a six
So
foot long trunk open and close on its own.
you can also deviate from that too because of the numbers of the chassis that were designed or made or whatever else, and the sale rate and the parts availability. You can even get yourself a PI spec stripper with rubber floor mats, and then find a car to take stuff from and wire it up
Yeah,
yourself.
for sure. I will
Do I
say
want
for
to do that?
those
Not
08
really.
and up, no matter what you're looking at, 08 and up is the
Yeah.
way to go for them. They picked up a decent bit of horsepower, not a ton, but a little bit of horsepower. Updated
Hmm.
front suspension, updated Watts link in the rear, just a bunch of little stuff that overall made them better. And they simplified the production line, and all of the 08 pluses all have power pedals, and they all have all the wiring for 8-way power seats, even if they didn't actually have it.
Yep.
So, what is next behind the Panther? Oh, sorry. The reason we're not necessarily going to hardcore recommend the Panther is the number one slot is purely gas mileage. It's
And
not
driving a
awesome.
Panther with tall gears is not fun. So there we go.
Yeah, that's basically the call you make, right? Panthers get okay gas mileage with deep gears, but then they suck to drive because they're like 4,500 pounds and 260 horsepower
Hmm.
pushing a long gear. It's just not good.
Yeah. And if you do
Panthers
anything
with
over,
355s are fun and do
but we
burnouts
get
and
back to
stuff.
17 miles to the gallon on a commuter
But we're
car.
right back to 17 mpg.
All right. Well, the next vehicle we came up to mind in, and you're going to see a recurring trend here. And I swear to God, I'm not Ford Blue. I was raised Ford Blue, but I am not
I
Ford
am.
Blue by nature. They just happen to make they happen to be in cahoots with car companies that I really jive with, and they're not GM and Chrysler. So,
Also, this is very era
anyways,
specific. I totally agree with Craig. Most of this list is going to be
yes,
Ford-ish stuff, but that's only because of the time frame and the era that we're at. Ford is
and
killing it.
because of that, the price range, and then we're getting to the point of post 2000s where now vehicles are hitting 200,000 miles because it's easy. Scotty Kilmer actually just put out a thing where the average age of a vehicle on the road nowadays is 12 years old, which is unheard of. Cars making it past 100,000 are is not only expected nowadays, but it's a surprise if they don't. And then now they're hitting 200,000 like it's nothing.
If you guys go check out our 90s episode, you'll see that neither Craig or I are big Ford fans from that era. We were fans of some other car companies back then.
Yeah,
Just pointed out there.
yeah. Well, post 2005 ish, Ford kind of got their heads out of
Yeah, they
their
really
asses
got
and
their
started
act
making
together.
good stuff. Also, 2004 and 5 Ford GT. We like
Not
those.
a commuter, however, comma.
Doug DeMuro will show that to you too. He and I are about the same size, and they got the scalped doors that don't work. Anyways, along the full size in the Ford segment ish, I like to bring up the Ford 500. And for those of you who kind of don't know what they are, it was a car named back in like the 40s, I think the late 40s into the 50s, as their full size um,
Yeah, so
vehicle, and
that
it got
name actually started as a trim level on the Ford
yeah,
Galaxy 500
yeah, there it
before
is.
it became its own car.
Yep. And Ford tried to bring that name out and bring it as a new car to replace the Taurus. Well, yeah, it kind of placed itself between the Taurus and the Crown Vic as far as a front wheel drive full size vehicle. The reason why I bring it up is because my dad has one he's had it for darn near 10 years and is almost 250,000 miles on it. And the only thing, the only thing he has done was rear brake calipers and an AC compressor. And if any of you guys know about Fords, their AC systems suck.
Almost
Just
as bad as
how it
power
is.
steering.
But it has an obnoxiously tall greenhouse. Greenhouse, for those of you who don't know, is the window area. It makes me feel like a kid again because I got like 5 inches between me and the top of the roof. The seats
And
are pretty comfortable. It's one of those cars that you slide into the seat, you don't fall into, which is awesome. And like the Crown Vic, it has a huge trunk, and it comes with a 3-liter Duratec V6, which like I said, Duratec are the king motors right now in my world. And I just know that they're robust and reliable. And it does not, Scotty will warn you on this, it does not come with a power shift transmission. It is an ASIN Mazda sourced slush box, which does just fine. Yeah, 500 and the Montego, I think, and the
yeah, so
MK.
yeah,
Sorry, the Zephyr.
yep. The so that one is the Ford 500 Mercury Montego and the Lincoln Zephyr. And the Montego and the Zephyr, I believe, don't quote me on this one, were both available in all-wheel drive variants as well.
Which
Not that it
again, not
particularly matters for this application, but
no.
Much like the Panther, they are mechanically identical, same engines in all of them. The only real
Mhm.
choice you're looking at is a trim choice, as in how much leather and fake wood do you want on the dash.
Yep. And the real big change over here too is it leather seats that are heated or are they not? Because at this point, within the price range, you can get yourself an SEL model or jump to the limited. And the big difference between the two is are your seats heated or not? The interior specs between them and then the lower spec of the Mercury or the Lincoln is pretty much indistinguishable. Although the Lincoln I think looks the best out of all the chassis, but
I would
subjective.
agree, but that's pretty subjective. They all kind of look like stodgy old man cars, and that's not
Yeah.
necessarily a bad thing.
Your wife even said that too. We told her about, oh, we're gonna bring this up in the cast, and she was like, ew. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I have a muscle truck and I have a rotary. If I have an old man vehicle that is reliable, for
Not
once in my
every
life, we're doing something
not
decent.
everything's got to be a race car, right?
Yeah. Although if your wife says that everything has to be race car, then you married right.
Also,
So
solid point.
yeah.
Solid point. All right,
Speaking
so
of race car and your wife, the Mazda 6, right? So jumping down another car category size,
yeah. So I don't know if
the
you know that's jumping down a size. The 6 is almost in that same group.
don't quote me on this too, but I think we're jumping down from the CD3. Sorry, we're jumping down from the D3 chassis to the CD3 chassis, which is
Yeah,
when the car started getting bigger as the Taurus moved up to the big
right.
Taurus.
So in this group, we're talking about the late model, relatively speaking, Mazda 6 and the Ford Fusion. The Fusion, you have, and this would be a fairly rare car, but they do exist. The
Mhm.
1.6 turbo with the 6-speed manual. Not a bad combo. It's the Fiesta ST's motor, makes like 200 horse.
My car goes psh psh.
Mighty Car
All right,
Mods, what?
what?
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, it's not a bad combo, honestly. It works pretty good. The 6-speed's nice. The car
Mhm.
overall, the late model Fusion, is a great driving chassis.
Yep.
The
Can confirm.
Mazda, the 6 would have a 2.5 liter Sky Active mill in it, which is also fantastic. It's what's in my wife's car, and
Can confirm.
yeah, makes great power, great
which
drivability.
which that the Mazda 6 is gorgeous too in the passion red or
Yeah,
soul red, is it?
Soul Red
It's
is the color.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a great color.
Gorgeous.
Honestly, that car in general, the body lines on it and everything have held up. They've aged really well.
Yeah, when it came out too, it was a stunner, and some people were kind of questionable about it. I think it turned out fantastic.
Yeah. You also have the previous generation Fusion, which was normally
Mhm.
found with either the Duratec motor or a 6-cylinder, I think.
Yeah,
Those can
well,
be
it's the
had pretty
six-cylinder
cheap.
Duratec.
Yeah,
So the Duratec line is the aluminum line, and they came with either the 4 pot or the 6 pot.
yeah. The previous gen Fusion's also not a bad call.
Getting
Um,
kind of old though.
yeah, they're getting old. I would stick with either the later model Fusion, and if you go later model, like I said, it's either the 1.6 6-speed, which is
Hmm.
rare but a sick find if you find one, or
Hmm.
the 2-liter turbo with the auto, which is makes a ton of power. The auto is not bad.
That's the power shift though, right?
I do not believe so. I'd have to double check that.
Yeah, we'll
It's not
fast
the
check
one
that
that has the
later.
god awful track record like
The Focuses
the
did.
Focus and
The Fo-
Fiesta transmission does.
Foci.
Foci, yes.
Um, that also
Um,
brings us down into the next segment.
yeah, the
That
next segment,
final.
mid-size hatches, I guess.
Yep. So I was actually looking at these in December, January timeframe, and whenever Steven puts this out, we're into the summer now. But basically, before I got into my escapade with the Impreza and the Honda Fit, which are also great dailies, um, I was looking at basically the triplets. They're based on the C1 platform from Ford. It's the Volvo C30, the Ford Focus, and the Mazda 3. Specifically, the T5 for the C30 because I want turbo and manual goodness. And
Turbo
then your
5-cylinder
focuses,
noises.
yeah, your focuses are interesting because I would actually prefer them in their highest spec. I don't typically like cars in their highest spec, but the titanium spec is nice. It's leather seat, my C3, manual. It's got heated side mirrors, pretty baller.
Edited addendum here. When he said the highest spec, he means the not the ST highest spec.
Well, the autocrosser in me too likes I like the base models because they're light and light is speed. Anyways, but
Yeah, no.
even looking at a Focus titanium, right? We're in a realm of luxury where I haven't been darn near 12 years, right? So like even the leather seats with sunroof and all that stuff, that's more nice than most of my vehicles ever.
Right on. And the pricing on those, because of the aforementioned power shift thing killing resale, and also the folks that just didn't hold great resale in the first place,
Yeah,
is shockingly low, actually.
yeah. Which the chassis is great for front wheel drive. When it first came out in '99, I think, like that,
Yeah,
it was
something
all
like
over
that.
the place as being a nimble handler in the SEC and rally circles, especially. You could tighten the thing up and then make it spin. And they're predominantly known for being good chassis. Development of that led to the Fiesta, and they brought that over from the Europeans. And Fiesta, everyone knows, as being nimble and awesome. So the Focus itself kind of shares the same ideology with that. I would still put in a rear bar and stick your tires, but that's just moody
Yeah.
mods.
And the 3 is effectively the same thing as a Focus. In both of these cases, they're available as hatches and sedans.
Mm-hmm.
The hatches are much better looking, but also typically carry a slight price premium.
I would
Whether or
still
not
get
that's
a
worth
hatch.
it, that's up to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes because I love hatchbacks, but
Oh,
that's
on
up to
that
you.
note too, the Mazda 3, I would vie more towards the 2.5 liter
100%. Yeah.
gasoline,
They're
non
available with
GDI
either the
or
2 liter or the 2.5 liter Sky Active motors, which are basically strongly related to the Duratec Fords. Solid motors, make great power, great reliability. We're not going to mention here the Speed 3 just because at this price point you're getting into one with just a bad life.
it's just also not.
And
To
for a
me, there's
commuter, it's no gain.
there's no gain on that. I mean, it gets to highway speeds faster, sure, whatever.
Yeah,
Um, it's also more problematic than it is reliable at that point.
for sure. That argument
Um,
could also be applied to the C30, but I've driven those turbo 5-cylinder Volvos. They're not screamers like what you would think of as a turbo mill. They're much more,
their torque,
they're
they
just
give you a
torquey
punch.
turbo motors like a lot of the Europeans use.
Yeah,
And it
and
works
they
good.
feel really
Also, it
good,
sounds cool.
and it
Turbo
looks
5 pod
gorgeous.
sounds cool.
Yeah, arguably it looks the best too.
I'd grant that. Especially the R Design C30 is a great looking little hatch.
You know, it's too bad they put a vampire in it.
Moving down.
Anyways.
Now we're down into near nugget status, but not quite nuggety.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe kind of nuggety. Actually, hang on, sorry. Quick edit. Forgot one more of the midsize. The cruise hatch that no one knows exists.
Oh, I got a little tirade about this too. So, like I said, I don't plead for blue here. The cruise, not just the cruise hatch, but even the sedan. So I dated a girl who had one. And we would do like gas mileage wars, right? Try to see who averages the best gas mileage. I won with 42. It's got an insane amount of seat adjustability. You can take a person who's 5 foot nothing and sit in behind it, and then sit someone like me who's 6'4.5", right? And it doesn't matter if there's a sunroof or whatever else. The steering wheel comes out far enough, it sits down low enough. It is fantastic. The Cruise is also one of the few rental spec vehicles that I've driven that I don't absolutely hate. I had a red one when I was visiting my uncle or my cousin for his wedding, and me and my sister went out onto the 101 up in the highway in Oregon, and we're slinging around the coastal corners or whatever else, and I'm on rental spec tires and all that stuff, and I was having a blast. And it is the only Chevy product that I can think of, other than the super nuggety one we'll mention later, that I can think of that actually is a good, not only just a commuter and gas mileage vehicle, but it's also a well-designed vehicle. I also liken that too, Stephen, because it is not a U.S. designed vehicle. It is a European Chevy. So there's
That
that.
seems to be have a better track record for small Chevys is the ones that weren't designed here in the States. I'm just saying. So
U.S. Chevy knows how to sell trucks. That's it.
astute viewers may have noticed that we didn't mention any of the what I think most people would think of as the common commuters, right? No Corollas here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Camry, Lexus ESs,
yeah, all
your
that jazz.
Accord Sports. Well, the reason why is because they're going to hold a premium. It's point and simple. Your money is not going to get you as good of a vehicle on return. It's like the difference between a decked out Fusion would be a base model Accord Sport. At that point, I'd take something that's a little bit more comfortable in the tush than, Honda's reliability. And this is not a detractor against Honda specifically, but you still have to do valve jobs to them, and Fords and Toyotas you don't. And Toyotas, of course, are going to have a huge markup in premium because of what they are. I'd rather buy a low mileage Ford or Mazda and ride it up in miles than take a Lexus and take it to the moon.
That's my thing. It's not necessarily that they aren't better cars, but at the same price point, you're going to be able to get a better example of the specific car.
Yeah.
Right. The same price point that's going to get you like a 80,000 mile, fairly nice, well-maintained Fusion is going to get you like a 150,000 mile mildly beat Camry.
Yeah, or not even beat, but just it has the miles. You can see the miles on it.
Yeah,
I would take the nicer interior and lower miles any day.
100%.
As long as it's not Nissan.
Yeah, that said, I've talked about this one before, so I won't rant on it again. Anything Nissan front wheel drive with that Jatco CVT should be stayed far away from at all times by all people.
And
I
burn
cannot,
on
in good
fire.
conscience, recommend those to anyone ever for any purpose.
And then personality wise too, I should relate this because you probably got some people out there who are screaming about like the Jetta. The Jetta is such a great car. I will never ever, in the length of this podcast, ever recommend a Volkswagen Auto Group product used to a non-mechanic. And me myself, I would never own one. I have owned a BMW in the past. I have not messed with Mercedes, and I don't know that in the price range I could find one that would be even
That's
remotely new.
that's my thing. I've messed with a few
So,
of the Germans, and I'm not going to necessarily discount them.
mhm,
But yeah, I can't recommend one to somebody that doesn't want to work on it on a regular basis
mhm.
or spend a ton of money at a Euro shop working on it.
Yeah,
And neither
and
one of
I'm
those
not.
are conducive to something that you're calling a commuter that you want to pile miles on.
Yeah, and for those of you in the European countries or who have like the base model Volkswagen and Audis and BMWs, I'm not sure your base model super reliable variants are more luxurious than the top trim like Fusion, for example. I don't think it's there.
Right.
Yeah,
The only V-dub I would even
anyways,
remotely consider is the 5 cylinders,
nope,
and
nope,
I just don't
we're not
see it.
touching those. We're not touching them.
Yeah,
How many
I'm just not
Corvaxes has
seeing
your
it.
Volkswagen gone through?
Oh, there's that too. So that said, moving out of
Sorry,
the
Lacey.
mid-size stuff down to a little shout out there. So moving
Yeah.
out of the mid-size stuff down to the nuggets,
Mm-hmm.
ultra
My
nuggets, I
favorite
guess
field in the world. You
it
cannot
is.
go wrong with nuggets. You cannot.
So earlier we were talking about road noise, bounciness, all that jazz. That doesn't necessarily have to be a nugget problem. Some nuggets have it, like Yaris's. Uh,
Yes,
Fits debatably. They're kind of debatable about how noisy
they
and
do
bouncy
have
they
it.
are.
I took mine to 110. It has road noise at 90 and above. It's just
Yeah,
terrible.
but not all of
Although
them do.
that's
Not all
it, but
nuggets, I mean.
yeah, and at that rate too, what 160, 100, $200 worth of sound deadening, it kind of fixes most of that issue
Yeah,
too.
depending on what kind of issues they have, some of it's easy to fix, all that jazz. So,
Mm-hmm.
nuggets that we're going to recommend.
Yes.
The back on the Ford Blue plan, and while Craig might not bleed Ford Blue, I kind of do, so I'm going to go with it. We have the Fiesta and its
Mm-hmm.
extremely close cousin, the Mazda 2.
Mm-hmm.
In my personal opinion, the Fiesta is the better of these two, just because there's more of them made. You can get them in better trims.
Mostly trims, yeah.
You can get them in a nicer trim. I have a Fiesta with the 1 liter 3-cylinder turbo mill, which is the fantastic commuter trim. But they didn't make a ton of them, and you really got to dig to find one. So if you happen to find one,
Yeah.
it's a sweet commuter.
And Steven and I talked about this before we even hit the go button. If one popped up that was in decent mileage and price, that would be the easy button. We would just hit that go and move on in our life.
Yeah, the chassis works really well. They're light.
Mm-hmm.
The only real downside to them is the autos are the Power Shift Auto, which has a whole bunch of TSBs and problems and is generally a flaming hunk of garbage.
Yep.
The 5-speed is quite good. And the 1.6 non-turbo...
Technical difficulties.
The 1.6 non-turbo is a solid motor. Works good. Just doesn't make a ton of power, and it's kind of a boring engine, but it works good enough. And in a high trim car, you could get it with heated seats, navigation, sunroof, all the doodads, all that jazz. The 2 is basically the same thing, but with a Mazda, 1.3 liter? 1.5 liter, I think.
1.5 liter, and it's a screamer, and it sounds thrashy when you rev it out, and it's not actually that great to have at high speeds all the time. However, everywhere else in life, it is awesome.
Yeah. The Mazda, I feel like, has slightly better chassis dynamics, but the Fiesta feels better. It's better put together interior and just feels more solidish.
And from personal experience too, and this is again a 6'4.5" thing, I fit in the Yaris Fit and Fiesta better than I do in a 2 and the Mirage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is
Yeah,
that
we
too.
left the
Again,
Mirage
Honda
off of this
Fit,
list because I can't, in good conscience, recommend a Mirage to anyone.
it's 74 horsepower
Yes,
for
it's
a new
terrible.
vehicle. It's
One of our listeners, Brendan, actually owned one for like a year and a half as a work commuter, and then wound up getting rid of it because it was just too much of a nugget to deal with on the daily. And I
yeah,
get that, right? Modern cars and traffic flow moving fast, like that, just it's not great.
yeah.
I can see that being a
Again,
literal road hazard.
I would also bring up the Toyota Yaris, and anybody who knows me in the show at this time knows that I have a certain soft spot for Yaris. They are wonderful. They're wonderful. However,
Weirdly, they don't have the tax that the Fits do on them.
Yeah, well, it's the aftermarket, right? The Honda Fit comes from the world of the small front-wheel drive VTEC cars that we had of yesteryear. We talked about this in the '90s show.
Yeah.
The new Fits are the old version EK and EG hatches. The Yaris is not. The Yaris is not from the same company, and Toyota doesn't love the Yaris like Honda loves the Fit.
Yeah.
However, it's still a 106 horsepower engine. The one NZFE still comes with, I think, a 5-speed. And the redesign in 2011 to 13, 14-ish has the SE, the sport model with rear disc brakes. If I could find one of those, that'd be awesome. But I'd also be tempted to modify it, and we're trying to get away from that. The last car on this list, too, in the price range and in the category that we have talked about extensively before is the Chevy Spark. We're going to pull one out real quick for the Chevy Spark manuals. Chevy decided to axe them, I think, in 2022. So if you want one, 2021 is the last year you can get one. I missed the bus on the super cheap ones. There were two that we saw that were less than $10,000 for a brand new one. Unfortunately, was not in a financial position to get one. But if I am now where I'm at, well, I guess after I move, if one pops up for sub 10 grand brand new, like that's an awful lot of car to beat with a warranty for the price.
That's hard to beat, man. That's like you said, it's a lot of car, it's warranted, and you definitely won't want to modify it. That's just a sweet slog the miles on it, and
although you
change the oil, not care. And that's part of what you're looking for in a commuter, right? Something you can just put gas and oil in and just not care.
Yep.
Gas, oil, repeat.
Yep, take it to car wash because it's just a whatever thing at that time.
Yeah. I mean, I literally do that. My car goes through a tunnel car wash like a couple times a week.
The Fiesta, not the Cobra.
Yeah, no, the Fiesta. Yeah. The Cobra does not go through tunnel car washes.
The Cobra gets wiped down with a baby diaper every morning at 8 o'clock.
I'm not one of those guys.
If you guys I did have a reference,
so
leave a comment. That also predates kind of how old we are.
We are old now. That is a thing. But yeah, so in the comments, leave us some stuff. Let us know what Craig the Giant here. For those of you who don't know, like he said, he is 6'4.5". So Miata's, MRS's, stuff of that idea as a commuter doesn't work. I tried. He's a giant.
I've already tried it. I'm not even sorry about that. I came this close to buying an MRS too. Anyways.
Yeah. So if you got some suggestions for stuff that fits boys in the big and tall persuasion that gets decent mileage and as a commuter, drop it down below. If you think we're all messed up because we skipped over all the cool stuff from the Japan clan and or the Germans and or the Koreans, feel free to let us know. You're wrong, sure. But you can let us know.
And then if you think that spending $20,000 for a car whose sole purpose is to put on miles is okay, also let us know. You can be wrong. That's your opinion. You've been listening to the Broken Axle Podcast. Please tell us how we did. We're all on the social media sites now if you just search for Broken Axle Podcast. And that includes also Facebook as well. We have a new merch line now, Steven.
Yepers. So we worked with an artist. We got a new merch line out. I will drop the links down below. You can customize them however you want. 1 logo, 2 logo, whatever you want to do. And hit us up on socials.
And if you want to follow our personal accounts, I am on Instagram at nomadic.wheelman. Steven.
And I'm over at JustCan'tDrive55 on Instagram and Facebook.
And for the rest of us, go hug your kids and call your mama. Take care.